Right now, as you watch this, 71 Iranian officials and 3 of the most powerful Americans alive are sitting in separate rooms inside the same hotel in Islamabad, Pakistan. They are not speaking to each other directly. Pakistani go-betweens are walking back and forth between them, carrying messages, because neither side trusts the other enough to sit at the same table. This is the highest-level meeting between the United States and Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and a 14-day ceasefire clock is ticking down to April 22nd. If these talks collapse, the next step is not more diplomacy. It is war. Here are 10 things about the Islamabad talks that should alarm everyone. Number 10. Iran sent 71 people to Islamabad, and they arrived with a warning. The Iranian delegation is led by Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. 71 officials. That is not a peace delegation. That is a small government in exile. They arrived at the Serena Hotel in Islamabad's Red Zone on April 9th and 10th. Pakistan shut down the entire Red Zone, closed major roads into the capital, and declared public holidays on both days so only essential workers would be on the streets. Araghchi made Iran's position clear before anyone sat down. He said Iran's decision to entertain these talks was made, and this is a direct quote, with complete distrust of the American side. He also said, "If attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations." Read that carefully. Iran is saying its hands are still on the trigger. Number 9. Vice President J.D. Vance told Iran not to play the United States. The American side is led by Vance, joined by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the former president's son-in-law. Vance has made it clear the U.S. expects fast results. President Trump himself has swung between calling Iran's 10-point proposal a workable basis on which to negotiate and threatening, in his own words, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." That is not diplomatic language. That is an ultimatum dressed as a press statement. The American side views this ceasefire window as short and final. Number 8. Iran came with 2 preconditions the U.S. has not met. Before the talks even started, Iran pushed 2 demands. First, a full ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon. Second, the release of frozen Iranian assets held under sanctions. The U.S. has not agreed to either. In fact, the U.S. has stated that the 2-week ceasefire, which began April 7th, does not cover operations in Lebanon. Iran and Pakistan both insist it does. This is not a small disagreement. This is a fundamental split on what the ceasefire actually means. According to reporting from Dawn, Iran has already accused Israel of violating ceasefire conditions in Lebanon before the Islamabad talks even formally opened on April 11th. Number 7. The U.S. brought its own proposal, and it demands zero enrichment. While Iran's 10-point plan focuses on sanctions relief, war compensation, U.S. troop withdrawal, and a binding UN Security Council resolution, the American side reportedly brought a 15-point counterproposal. The details have not been made fully public, but the core demand is that Iran halt all nuclear enrichment. That is a non-starter for Tehran, which has spent decades building its nuclear program and views enrichment as a sovereign right. This is the gap that could swallow the entire negotiation. If you are following this story and want to understand where it goes next, subscribe to the battle map. We are tracking every development in real time. Number 6. Iran has 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, and nobody knows what happens to it. This is the number that keeps military planners awake at night. 60% enrichment is a short technical step from 90%, which is weapons grade. 460 kilograms is enough material to cause a global crisis if Iran decides to push forward. Any deal that comes out of Islamabad will have to address this stockpile. But right now, neither side has publicly agreed on how to handle it, who inspects it, or what verification looks like. The proximity talk format, where Pakistani mediators carry messages between rooms instead of the 2 sides speaking face-to-face, makes hammering out technical details like this painfully slow. Number 5. Lebanon is the tripwire that could blow up everything. The US says Lebanon is excluded from the ceasefire. Iran says it is included. Israel has reportedly continued operations there. If a major strike hits Lebanon while these talks are underway, Iran has every reason to walk out. Araghchi's language was precise. He said Iran's armed forces will cease defensive operations only if attacks are halted. If Iran believes the ceasefire has been broken in Lebanon, the entire framework collapses, and there is no backup plan. Pakistan's mediators have no authority to enforce a Lebanon truce. Nobody at the Serena Hotel controls what happens in Beirut. Number 4. Pakistan's goal is shockingly modest. They just want the talks to keep going. According to Al Jazeera's reporting from April 10th, Pakistan has set a deliberately low bar for success. Islamabad is not expecting a final deal. It is not even expecting a framework agreement. Pakistan's goal is simply to get both sides to agree to keep talking after this round ends. That tells you how fragile this process is. Pakistan knows that if either side walks away, there is no other mediator waiting in the wings. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif personally invited both delegations. Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has been running the diplomatic effort for weeks. If Pakistan cannot hold this together, nobody can. Hit the like button if you think these talks matter. It helps more people see this video and understand what is at stake. Number 3. The Strait of Hormuz is still not fully open on day 5 of the ceasefire. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. That is 1 out of every 5 barrels. When Iran restricted passage through the strait during the war, oil prices spiked globally. One of the US demands before the ceasefire was the full reopening of the strait. Trump stated this publicly on April 1st, but as of April 11th, 5 days into the ceasefire, the strait is not fully open. Iran's 10-point proposal includes a demand for continued Iranian oversight of the strait, calling it safe passage under Iranian control. The US wants unrestricted access. This is not just a military issue. Every country that imports oil has a stake in this single waterway. Number 2. Pope Leo XIV condemned the war from Rome this morning. While the world's attention is on Islamabad, the Vatican weighed in. Pope Leo XIV publicly condemned the war, adding moral and international pressure on both sides. This matters because it shifts the conversation beyond military strategy and into the court of global public opinion. When the head of the Catholic Church speaks against a conflict, it changes the political calculations for leaders who need broad international support. Neither Washington nor Tehran can afford to look like the side that chose war over peace, while the Pope is calling for an end to the killing. Number 1. If these talks fail, warships are already in position. This is what makes everything else on this list so urgent. The 14-day ceasefire expires on April 22nd. That is 11 days from today. Iran's Supreme National Security Council said negotiations could last up to 15 days, which means the talks could outlast the ceasefire by 3 days. If no extension is agreed upon and no deal is reached, the military option goes back on the table immediately. US naval assets are deployed in the region. Iran's forces are on alert. Trump has already shown he is willing to act, given that this entire war began on February 28, 2026, when US and Israeli forces assassinated Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran has said any ceasefire violation will be met with, in their words, full force. There is no buffer. There is no cooling off period. If Islamabad fails, the next chapter is written by generals, not diplomats. Here is the question I want you to answer in the comments, and I am pinning this. Do you believe proximity talks, where two sides never sit in the same room, can actually produce a lasting peace deal? Or is this format designed to fail? Drop your answer below. This is the battle map. We will be here when the next development breaks.